Have you looked into the world of brand partnerships as a source of income in your business? Well, after today's conversation, I definitely think you will. Brand partnerships can be a great way to increase visibility in your business and revenue if done strategically. In fact, 71% of consumers say they enjoy co-branding partnerships. Today on the show, we sat down with Ted Raad, who is the founder of Trend, one of the fastest growing influencer management and marketing companies in the US. We talk about why independent business owners need to lean into more paid brand partnerships, the strategies you need to find the right brands to work with, and how to advocate for yourself to make sure your deals are mutually beneficial. Now let's get into the episode. The Independent Business Podcast is brought to you by HoneyBook, the all-in-one platform for anyone with clients. Book clients, manage projects, and get paid faster, all with HoneyBook. You can use the code podcast for 20% off of your brand new account and let business flow your way. Hello, Ted. How are we doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm really excited for this conversation because before we just started recording, we were talking about it. I think a lot of us as business owners, we're looking for other ways just to expand our revenue streams. And I think brand partnerships are something that may not necessarily be at the top of our list. When we think of brand partnerships, we think of like influencers. And I think, this can be a really untapped market that a lot of business owners can try to navigate to essentially, like I said, increase revenue in their business. So I'm really excited for you to be here to talk about this topic.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for bringing me on board.
Absolutely. So I'm really curious just to know your journey essentially of as a business owner, like what led you to now having like an influencer, like management agency essentially?
Yeah. It's actually a weird story, right? I think it's something that when I was a kid, I didn't really dream of. I was definitely I was a big sports guy growing up. So I didn't think, starting an influencer management company that's highly focused on women's lifestyle and fashion was going to be one of those goals that I had for myself. But as time went on, I worked at Hewlett Packard for over 10 years. I was in the mergers and acquisitions department in the IT space, so was dealing with contracts. And then my wife, over time, started a fashion and lifestyle blog on the internet, and she used Instagram to drive traffic to her blog. So she was very blog heavy at first, and I had no idea how any of this was going to make any money. We've been married for a few years at the time, so I was just like, hey, if you're happy with it. You have a hobby, it's fantastic. But pretty soon her blog started to really take off and her Instagram followers started to take off. And I remember she hit 10K one day on Instagram and we all celebrated like crazy. We couldn't believe she hit 10K. And then 3 months later, she was at 100K. And we're like, what's happening, right? Like it took forever to get 10K. Now you're growing like crazy. Then there started being a lot of brand deals would come in. And they came in mostly through DMs and they were saying, hey, we just saw that you posted our skirt 3 days ago and you sold the whole thing out. And we did all of our data to figure out where everything is and who did this and where to go. When we found you, please work with us. And so a lot of her partnerships early on were very organic and very simple. Now I had no idea what her value was. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how much to charge. I didn't know what things looked like. And for me, it was very important for her to make sure that she had the value that was tied to her. So we actually signed with a management company, and I was very happy at my job at HP. I just finished my master's that they sent me to do. So I was like going to be the corporate man, so to speak, and working in that direction. And then she started working with this management company, and then over time, and she was dreaming to sign with this one. It was one she was very excited for, very reputable name in the industry. And then deals were coming in, which was great, but they really weren't tied to her niche. Now, for someone like Dee, she's my wife. She doesn't have followers on Instagram because she would say it like this. She's not a talented musician. She's not an actor, an actress. She wasn't on TV for any reason. There's no other reason why they'd follow her other than they trust her advice on fashion and lifestyle. So she has to stay as true as possible to that feeling that her audience is there for. So when deals come in, she's very specific. She's very detailed on like, hey, this doesn't make sense for me. And there was a few deals that she shot down for a lot of money very early on that I was even questioning, right? I was like, hey, I'm working very hard this month and this was a deal worth my month's salary. Why don't you just do this one thing? And she's like, well, because I'm going to lose my audience and nothing is more important to me than my audience base. And they are here for that reason. She was very passionate about that. Her management company didn't agree with her. And as she started declining those things, the management company was like, hey, we're not aligned because the way it works, the management company just makes money off of the deals they get. So if she's declining all these deals, she's not taking them, but she's taking some of the deals that she's getting because it's very organic. the pool of money she was declining was this big, and the pool of money that she was actually accepting was much smaller. Therefore, the management company was putting a lot of pressure on her to start taking bigger deals, and there was a disconnect because I didn't understand why the management company wouldn't look at her account, which was growing, and saying, okay, if we stay organic to this, you're right. She's probably the amount of campaign she's taking now is smaller. Maybe the budgets are smaller for some of those companies, but if they stay true to it, then that will be bigger and bigger opportunities coming down the line because she's able to produce more and better, and her audience is loyal, and they will listen to her suggestions, and they will trust her, which increases, click-throughs and everything else that's tied to a successful brand partnership. But they weren't seeing that. They were looking very short term, and push comes to shove, essentially the relationship didn't work out, and Dee Dee felt like it was a disconnect. They felt like it was a disconnect. It was just like a mutual agreement. This is not working. So you would think at that moment it was in my head to start a management company. It wasn't. It was in that moment to start finding another one. And the idea for me was like, hey, let's go find you a spot that actually follows and adheres to, like, they understand what you're trying to accomplish, that you're not the celebrity, that you're somebody who's growing your account organically, and you have to stay true to the brand partnerships. And the more we started talking to her and her friends, they all had similar experiences with other management companies that felt like their management company did not understand the basic concept of staying organic and true to it. And if you think about it, on long term, there's a ton of benefits for both sides. If the management company is like, yes, we understand the strategy, we are aligned with you, we will find you the organic partnerships that make sense. Therefore, the brand's happier, you're happier, audience is happier. All three avenues win, then that'll grow and succeed. And so as I've been asking around, they didn't have any solutions. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. There was a friend of hers at the time that also needed management. She wasn't happy with hers. So I said, I'll just do it for free. Like, let's just get this thing going. I'll do you and Dee Dee. And then it spawned on me that I need to just start making this a business so that I could help people like Dee Dee and Emily. And from then I started taking on another one, and then another one, and then another one. And then, here we are with the idea that we are going to stick to, like, we are 100% tied to the creator strategy. Organic partnerships leads to more organic opportunities, which leads to more successful partnerships, and allows the creator in this crazy world of Instagram algorithms and TikTok algorithms and everything else that's tied to it. The audience trust is huge in this space. And so we're very, very tied to making sure that we don't mess or touch that in any capacity. So we're big on customer service for our clients. We're big on saying we are advocating for our influencers. We are 100% behind our influencer strategy. That's what we are here for. They don't work for us. We work for them. And we want to make sure the strategy is successful. And I think based on those very simple principles, right? Like, having a management firm is not new. Having an agency is not new. But it's the nuances, I think, that separated us from the other ones, and the little details. And as we continue to grow, staying true to those qualities and ensuring we add some different layers to it, and provides our creators the opportunity that they get here that they couldn't get anywhere else, because we are aligned with those little small details. So yeah, that's kind of the story of how we started. And here we are now. We have Trend Management, which manages over 85 creators and a total of over 100 million in reach across all platforms. And we do have a Trend Social, which is our brand marketing page. So we do help brands that are coming into the space saying, I want to work with creators and I have no idea how. And we say, well, we will not only tell you which creators are probably most successful for your brand, and we'll tie that organic partnership there, but we'll tell you how you can start to build on that in other avenues. So it's another opportunity for brands to kind of tap into it and also help them get a head start into what that looks like in overall marketing. So yeah, that's how it started, and this is where we are. My role now is just trying not to mess it up and continue to stay true to those values. Yeah.
But I love that so much. I loved you walking us through that journey, because I think it goes to show, again, just how important it is to really be aligned with your values. And I think that's amazing too with your wife, where she consistently put her audience first in terms of when to pick specific deals that she knew that was best going to serve them. And she turned things away that she knew that wasn't going to benefit them, which I think that just goes to show, especially that she's been able to become a successful influencer. You've been able to create a successful management company I think that just goes to show, just speaking again of how sticking to your values through and through and actually acting them out is so, so key and so valuable to business success. So I absolutely love that. And I think too, it just sounds like you are creating such a healthier relationship between brands and influencers. And so I just love everything that you're doing. And I just loved, thank you so much for sharing that story. Another question that I have, because I already know some business owners are probably already thinking, I don't want to be an influencer, right? But I'm like, again, I think people are leaving money on the table when they're not looking at potential brand partnerships. In fact, 71% of consumers
easy, and they enjoy it, and they take them to dinners, and it's a lot, that's the makes it a lot easier. So if you're not, if you're making everything very tight and businessy, sometimes it can prevent a little bit of a barrier working with somebody else. People, of course, everybody wants to do well, but they also don't want to be miserable doing it. They want to have a good time, enjoy themselves a little bit, work with good people. That's also very important. So I think that's, a good stepping stone is, what are some of the brands that you just innately yourself enjoy? That's a very good stepping point. And then try to find a way to get in contact with them. If you have a social media page, maybe tag them. Hey, we love this brand. We love what's going on. Get their attention somehow. And you start building that a little bit more.
I love that. That's super helpful, because I also think, like I say this all the time, that we as business owners, we're more than our business. And so, I have a friend, she's a fellow business owner, and she sells her products and services like all business owners, but also too, she loves to talk about products that she's using all the time, whether a pillow, her skincare. She talks about all this. I literally say her name and influence. I'm like, oh, here's influencer, this individual doing her thing, influencing people. Influencing people and people all the time. And she does it because she says people are always asking her for feedback of like everyday things that she's using, but she is known in the industry as a business owner, and she does helps people with speaking. So I think, again, it just goes to show is don't limit yourself. I think a lot of the times we always, I hear business owners say all the time, like, well, I can't talk about anything else on my profile, but it's like, that makes you more human, right? Again, it builds that trust factor. So like when she is selling her stuff, like even her business stuff, I purchase, and then she also gives recommendations for other things. So I think, again, it really builds this foundation and makes you more relatable. It makes you more human, and like people buy from people. We hear that line all the time. And I think that's just such a prime example of that. So I think, again, don't limit, of course, like think of tools that you like love in your business that you're using that you could like obviously form a strategic partnership with, but it doesn't have to just be your business. Like, are there other things like that you use on a daily basis that could also a benefit that you want to highlight as well? So I love that.
Yeah, 100%.
Sorry, go on.
Well, I 100% wholeheartedly agree. I think that's part of it. Like you mentioned, a great example of somebody who, again, it has nothing to do with pillows, right? But her love for pillows is what's causing her to talk about that situation, which she's an organic influencer, right? Because she's going to influence people based on her own opinions. So yeah, it is those products that you love, the products that you're using anyways. People do want to know about that. People want to know what's going on in your everyday life. And also pages that are very focused on just their products and services, they kind of lose their audience a little bit. It's like you're expecting the same thing every day. But if you're able to mix it up a little bit and say like, hey, we are this and we love to do, this, and FYI, this is one of our favorite, vacation spots. Like you're bringing them into that. You're just not like this business that's selling X, but that you're also a person behind that business that's trying to do things for themselves, for their family, whatever. And you're kind of bringing them along that journey of being an independent business owner, but also having a life.
Yes. And I think people love that and relate to that more, because I see a lot of times too on social media that people do these fun weekend recaps. They'll do like a recap in their stories of what they did for the weekend that has nothing to do with business, just how they enjoyed their time off. And then they'll include links like, oh, like I had this cute like dress, like here's the link to it. Again, it's just so many like really great, simple ways to get started. If it's a brand that really aligns with you and that you enjoy using and it's benefiting your life in some capacity. So I like that there was really it's really tangible, simple steps that you provided of like how to get started. And so another question that I have is, can you just share with us any like pitching strategies, right? Like, especially, it's hard to put yourself out there sometimes, right? Like a lot of us, we get into our heads, we can overthink things. Can you just share with us some key pitching strategies that you have seen work for your clients where they have been able to secure some of these partnerships?
So there's a few things I think you mentioned earlier when it comes to pitching. Pitching is very much showing what your value is, right? Like, unfortunately, it's what it is. It's like, I remember when I was looking for a job out of college, you have to basically pitch yourself, show your resume, who you are, what the value is. some key strategies that I've realized is relationships is key. It's hard probably to get your foot in the door, but sometimes relationships is built by, constant tagging in stories, stuff that you use organically. So that's going on and be like, hey, as part of your pitch, as you can see, even in our DMs, because it's going to show up in their DMs, the times you've tagged them, it's like, I love your product and I love everything that we've done together. And I would honestly share it for free, but I would love to have the opportunity to work with you in some capacity, anything new that's coming out that we can work on, anything that's coming through. And a lot of our pitches for our clients in this regard, we usually go by saying, one, FYI, they love your product. Two, it's shown in these three ways. One, they tag you. Two, their affiliate sales are through the roof on the stuff that you've done. And three, their lifestyle kind of meshes what you're looking for on your side, as we can see as shown on your own Instagram page. So those things align to being a response from them saying, yeah, we've actually seen, the impact of this and would love for it to work. So you have to show that you're actually interested in the product and that you've done it before. And a lot of misconception with brand partnerships is I won't do anything unless it's paid. And I think that can hinder a potential opportunity. I think you've got to get yourself shown out there that you're willing to, that you do love the product, that you're doing it organically, that you're okay with just, whatever affiliate program they have for the short term, that you're building that trust in audience, or that trust with them up to a point where they're like, okay, yeah, this actually makes sense. And if you're waiting for a paid partnership and you're never going to do anything about it, you're probably not going to get many more opportunities than the few that may come in your inbox. But then it's going to seem to your audience that all you're doing is paid partnerships. And that's also not appealing to an audience, right? And there's a little bit of fatigue in that from an audience, constantly seeing paid campaign. They want to see what you're actually using. They want to see the pillow that you love to sleep on and, the face cream you use before bed and everything else that's tied to your everyday life. And I think it's very important as part of the pitch process is I would share you for free. I would do this organically. In fact, I've done it organically. I love your brand so much. I would like to find a way where we can even just work together in some capacity and, we'll make it worthwhile. And I don't think people might say it's underselling yourself, but people that want to work with, other people, they want to know that they value their brand. It's important. And, a lot of people are business owners and they don't want to work for somebody, or they don't want to, work with somebody that's like, oh, they're just going to use my brand for whatever reason. They just want money out of it. They want to know they actually like it, that they enjoy it, that they want this to happen. It's very important in that type of relationship. So I think pitching is very important to show them the history of what you've done to get to this point, to say like, yes, this is the value I'd love to have. And also we've seen plenty of brands reach out organically because of the time someone has tagged them and they've seen the sales go through and they say, hold on, we can do something bigger with you. Let's make something happen. And it's a very easy way to get something on the books for them.
I love that. That's super, super helpful. And another, we had our HoneyBook, we had our partner summit last December. And one of the speakers, oh my gosh, what was her name? I think it was Lainey was her name. And she talked about how, which I'm really curious about this type of strategy too, but when a brand turns her down, because, it was all about affiliate marketing. And so when a brand turns her down, she does not take no for an answer.
Yeah.
I mean, she is instantly being like, okay, well, here's why I think this is a mistake on your end. And so I think a question that I have in regards to that, how should we follow up? Especially when we're like, okay, no, I know that I can provide value to this brand, right? How do you have any good follow-up strategies as well, where people are like, no, I know that this brand is valuable, how much it's impacted my business. And here's where I think essentially, how can we advocate for ourselves is more so the question.
Yeah, I think there's two things. And if you can't get this done, it's fine. But get on the phone with them and figure out what their strategy is in general. What are they trying to accomplish? Are they trying to accomplish sales? Do they want more brand awareness? What are those goals that they're looking for? So you can say, hey, I can definitely help in this capacity. And what is it that you're worried about? Paying me too much? Then can we work on, we've done very creative things with our creators before where we just say minimums. Okay, fine. But if we'll work with you, I'll decrease my rate to 20%. But if I get over X sales, then I get X percentage of sales on top of that so that I can at least know my value is there when it comes to the ROI goals, right? So I think getting on the phone with them, trying to find those opportunities. And then on top of it, constantly, it sounds like it's nagging, so to speak, but be on top of it. So hey, how are things going this month? We talked a little bit, last month, we said it wasn't the right time to do so. I'm following up this month, seeing those opportunities. And I know that, my audience has grown X. This is something that I know that will be very a huge opportunity for you. Would love to make something happen. Just staying on top of it. I think it's great. I wouldn't advise being too aggressive though, because then if you're I think, I don't know if she said this exactly like this, but like, this is why I think you're making a mistake. I think can automatically make somebody feel more defensive. I think what you weren't trying to do is make someone feel more collaborative and inclined to be like, okay, I guess that's true. Instead of saying you're missing out on an opportunity here, there's an opportunity for both of us to win. I'm big on thinking of the positive side of words rather than like the negative aspects of them messing up. But what are some things that they could gain from this relationship, and really putting those out there together, and sometimes offering, hey, I'll do this one time for free and let me know how things went.
Yeah, and number one, she definitely said it more eloquently than I did.
Yeah.
But to your point, I think again that there's nothing wrong with following up. I think staying on top of it, right? Like showing people like, hey, like I really want this. I think if there's any brands that you want to work with, whether it's a tool that works like in your business that you love using, like HoneyBook, or whatever other things, or if there's like a brand that you just really love, that's really, like I said, on a personal level, I think okay, like just putting yourself out there. I think that's the thing. And don't be afraid of rejection, right? Like keep putting yourself
Absolutely.
out there, because you want to your point of staying on top of it, because the right brands are going to eventually want to work with you, but you have to get started in some way, shape, or form. Like don't be afraid to pitch yourself, because I feel like when you hear no, you're just one step closer to your next yes. So it's a matter of just taking that leap of faith and just go with it and see where that leads you. And I think it can lead into a really awesome journey in brand partnerships. And again, like providing another stream of revenue in your business. So similar to your wife's story of, how when she was working with the management company and you guys just weren't like, she wasn't really aligned with it fully. 73% of marketers find managing brand partnerships to be a major challenge. So how can we navigate that? Again, just adding to earlier of like really advocating for ourselves when we are in those types of partnerships to make sure that we get what we're looking for, and to also make sure that it also benefits the brand.
Yeah, that's a big key. I think this goes to communication is very important before a partnership even starts, and expectations is very key. That's why I mentioned earlier, when you're talking to a brand, understand their goals, because if they're jumping into this partnership and they're saying, hey, we expect 5 times revenue off of this one campaign, and you're like, oh, that's a big jump, right? Like, then immediately this is either going to be very easy for you to do or very hard for you to do based on how you know your audience and what the rate is they're paying you. So I think it's very important to make sure that you have all details in there. This works on a brand perspective too. We say when they work with a creator, work with anybody else, like make sure you are communicating the expectations of this. Because some people just say, I just want to make sure that you're communicating effectively the product and service that we are providing. And that is very important for me to do so. And if that's the case, then your objective. You want a clean, concise content that is tied to the product or service that clearly identifies what they are providing as value to somebody. And then you're like, perfect, that's the check. Now someone may say, I need to make sure I get sales, and sales is very important for me. Then you're trying to make sure that you have basically a click to act, right? Something needs to happen. So in doing so, you're putting at the very end, hey, you have 20% off now, or you ask the brand, if you want sales, give me something that's going to get them to buy right now, or give me a 24-hour code, or give me something that's going to be incentivizing, and you guys need to collaborate through that. That's very important for us in our business. When we tell creators and brands collectively, we tell creators, the expectation from this brand is this. Do you want to accept it or not? So it's very important for the creator to go, actually, if that's their expectation, I'm going to go ahead and decline. And the brand can say, hey, why decline? Well, because the expectation is this, and you can work your way through it. But it can be very hard to manage when you're saying, oh, that sounds great. I'll give you this, just make sure you do this. And then you realize later the expectations were misaligned. You have one brand doing this, and then the owner's expecting this, and it's all over the place. It can be very tough. So you just want to clearly define expectations in general across both sides.
I think, again, as independent business owners, it's just we have to get really clear on our own goals and our values, similar to earlier, of just making sure that, number one, we're working with brands that are able to work with us and that their values align with there's like a symbiotic relationship where our goals and our values just really align. But you have to be very grounded in what it is that you want on your end, even before reaching out to these brands, so that it's a lot easier for you to be able to advocate for yourself and manage expectations and be able to communicate. So, because everybody, you both want the same goal. It's just like, the way that we view of how we're going to get there is very different. So being aligned 100%. In who you are and your values, and then making sure of like advocating for yourself on the other end with these brands.
Yeah, and to your point, sometimes it's very hard to figure out exactly what you want, but it might be easier for you to draw out exactly what you don't want. So you know how to come to this conversation and say, I absolutely don't want this, this, and this. I might be amenable to these other 3 things, and this would be great if this happened. right? So, I mean, you're exactly right. Understanding what you're trying to accomplish is important. It might be easier to start with a don't want column.
Yes, yes, yeah, that is so true. And I'm really curious to know, especially since you work with influencers, like what are your thoughts? Because I've seen this all over TikTok a lot, and it's still like a thing where de-influencing. What are your thoughts
Hmm.
on that? Because that was a major trend too. So I'm really curious to know what your thoughts on it as somebody who works with influencers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that de-influencing is a thing if the influencer is just constantly doing paid partnerships that aren't organic, that don't make sense to them. And I think people are just there's they call it a consumer fatigue. I mean, over time, when you're on social media and you're following somebody and you're like, oh, paid ad, oh, paid ad, oh, paid ad, it can be very overwhelming. But if the content creator is doing something very organic, like if they're a beauty creator and they're doing stuff for beauty, you're not thinking twice about it. You're just like, oh, I follow this person for this exact thing. And the term is out there as de-influencing, but the stat is there's a stat out there, and I can't remember the exact stat, but it's more than 80% of Gen Z people would listen to an influencer advice over their own family. So the de-influencing may exist, but the analytics don't actually say so, right? Like there's some data points. I think it's a cool thing to say, but again, somebody influenced de-influencing. So it's just kind of like
This
this whole trend
cycle.
that's going forward. But that's why I think overall it's very important to stay true to who you are and what you want. And you mentioned this before. Understanding what you want is very important, and making sure that it aligns to what your audience is expecting. If you're doing something totally random, if I say I love golf, and then all of a sudden, I'm out there doing, I don't know, I'm buying a new pair of jeans. I'm like, what are you doing? It doesn't align to who you are. And Ted, you've never wore a pair of jeans in your life. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. I'm sorry. So that becomes like, oh, it's just another paid ad. It doesn't make any sense, and we're tired of it. I'm wasting my time clicking through your content. But if it's organic to who you are and it makes sense, people aren't even going to see it as a paid ad. And that's why it's very important to pick the right partnerships and understand what you're trying to accomplish. And that way, if in that way it works out tenfold, and the brands want to do it again, you get more partnerships, and it kind of builds on itself.
Oh, I love that. There was just like so much goodness. And I think, again, it just boils down to number one, putting your audience first, I think is
Mm-hmm.
just so key. Being in tune with what they want, bringing them into the journey, into your journey, I think is so key. And I think, again, your value, staying true to who you are. And I think just making the ask, just make the ask, again, and being able to advocate for yourself. So this conversation has been so helpful. And a question I always love to close out with is, what do you think is the biggest differentiator between the businesses that succeed and the ones that fail?
This is going to sound super cliche because I've been um, a big advocate of this lately, but it's either because they believed it or not. And I think part of it is that, as independent business owners, or for myself, uh, me jumping into trend wasn't because I thought there was going to be money in it or that there's going to be something else. I just felt like I was fixing a problem, and I believed that the problem needed to be fixed. And I was 100% sure that needed to be there. But if I started this not knowing the issues in the industry, or not knowing the gaps, or not knowing anything else, and I was saying, hey, trust me, it makes money. I saw a guy do this and make it, and it works great for them, then great. Because I can tell you at the time when I started doing this, the amount that my wife was making, I did the math backwards on it. I'm like, I'm going to make no money on this thing, right? Like I just trying to fix a problem. We'll see where it goes. But it was right place, right time. So we were able to, now we've got a team of 50 out here. It's because I believed in what we were trying to solve. I believed in our why. I believed in what we were trying to do. And when I talk to creators, they say like, oh, wow, you sound very convicted. And I don't even feel like I'm trying to sell anything to them. I'm just trying to tell them like, yes, this is why we're here. And when they give me all their grievances and issues they've had, I'm saying, and I'm sorry that happened to you. And I'm glad that we can be here to fix those problems for you. And it's little things like that. And also being persistent. I think that's another thing too, is people quit on themselves way too easily. I remember when I started Trend, the first thing someone told me was like, hey, there's like a million management companies. Does this even make any sense? And that could have been one of those things where it's like, yeah, why am I doing this? It's already out there. It already exists. What's the point? But no, I was very much on the mindset of like, yeah, there's plenty out there, but I think I'd do something different. And I think I'm doing what I think is going to be valuable. And this is my differentiator in the business. And that's a really key thing to kind of think about when you're an independent business owner and you feel like people are telling you it doesn't make sense, or it's kind of like, oh, everyone already sells this, or it doesn't even matter. It's like, well, there's little details or nuances that differentiate you. You may sell the same product, but what's your customer service like? Or, what's your interaction with people? What is your relationships like? Or maybe you have a strong network. Those are the key differences that really define a successful business versus an unsuccessful business. And so for me, it's very much that if you think it's going to fail, then you're not really going to be creative. You're not going to think of what are the different solutions for it. But if you're like, no, I think that this is going to work out, then you're going to start thinking of solutions and creative solutions. And you're going to think of different things you never would have thought of. And at 3 a.m., you're going to wake up and think of like, oh, that's the name for my business immediately. Because funny story, our name before this was Influencer Narrative. And that is a terrible, it's a long name. And I'm like, what does that even mean? What is it? And I remember literally middle of the night waking up being like, Trend, I think I like it. And most things that happen in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. for me is normally just like, that's terrible. Like I wake up and I'm like, Ted, what were you thinking? It was really cool in the middle of the night. But, that's the stuff when you believe in what you're doing, your creative juices will flow and things will happen. So I think it's very important for people to be persistent, to believe in themselves and know why they're doing it. And if those two things mesh up, then good things will happen. And a solid expectation on what you think success is also matters. So I tell people all this time too, like for me, success is making sure that our clients are happy and that we're doing a good service for them. Everything else will come into play. That'll all follow. But if you're saying like, hey, I'm doing this to make sure that our creators are happy and they are feeling the best that they are in their style of life, then I'm successful and everything else will of course follow. But if you're thinking of like, oh, I'm just here, my goal of success is I need to make X amount of money this year, and if not, then we're a complete failure, then you should rethink why you have this business. And it's very important. Like, yes, we all need to make some form of money, right? But it's really only going to matter when you're filling something, and that's really going to be the driver. So if it's going to be client satisfaction, make that your goal because everything else will follow. If it's going to be delivering a stronger product than the competitor, great. Make that your focus. Everything else will follow. You've got to understand what the differentiator is in your business. So I think I gave you like 9 different things,
but they were all so good. They were all so good and just such great reminders. Again, like you were like, I just saw a problem and I was like, I feel like I could solve it. Right. And then you just continuously were showing up. And I think that's such a good point of what you said earlier. If we automatically think things are going to fail, we are not going to find the solutions. And I think as business owners, we have to be solution focused, right? We face a lot of trials trying to build a business. And it's like, you always have to be solution thinking, like how can I solve this problem? It sucks right now. This isn't enjoyable, but I want to keep going. So how can I solve this problem? Like, what are the options? There's more than one way to figure things out in your business. And I think, again, to your point of like creating these goals, but don't get so fixated on how you reach whatever your goals are, right? There's more than one ways to get there. So I think being open to the journey and just letting it take you where it can go. And I love that. And like you were a prime example of that with Trent. I mean, honestly, which is amazing. So thank you so much, Ted, for coming on the show. And for those who want to connect with you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a great conversation. And I think this is something that, again, a lot of business owners will get excited about wanting to lean into, brand partnerships. So where can people connect with you if they want to find you?
Well, you can find us on our website, www.trendcompanies.com. You can also find us on social media under the handles Trend Management and The Trend Social. And you can also there's a contact page on the website that you can click on, and we'll get in touch with you and try to help you out in any of your independent business owner ideas.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much, Ted. And for everybody listening, until next time. That ends our episode of the Independent Business Podcast. Everything we've discussed today can be found at podcast.honeybook.com. Head to our website to access for show notes, relevant links, and all of the resources that you need to level up. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast to make sure you never miss our future content. Drop us a review and leave our guests some love on social. And thank you again for listening.